701 School Board order. It's Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, 3:30 p.m. Daylight Saving Time. With that, we'll move to item 2, pledge of allegiance. Please stand if you wish. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to item 3, public comment.
We have none, Mr. Chair.
We have none at this time, so with that, we'll move to item 4, administrative reports, directors, student directors, representatives. With that, we'll move to C, any committee reports. Hearing none, we'll move to item 5, motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Director Polter, supported by Director Martin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. With that, we'll move to item 6, motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Moved by Director Polter, supported by Director Egan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And we'll go to administrators. I just wanted to make sure our business manager was paying attention, so he reminded me. Anything from administrators?
We do. We have both Mr. Glad and Ms. Husko here today, and they were probably thinking they were getting out of this or something when they were off the hook. But so Mandy, do you need the screen or
Well, if
do you?
I can get logged in, so.
Okay.
It always likes to not work for me, so.
Maybe Tyler, maybe you want to go first, and I can help Mandy get her screen up. You're up, Mr.
Good,
Glad.
thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, members of the board, thank you guys for having me. It's good to see everybody again. Just a couple updates for you here from the Buildings and Grounds Department. As you know, school's off to a great start so far. Our staff are getting things done. School buildings are holding up very well. We're just going to keep after it. So, a couple things about the summer projects. As you know, we had a couple bigger ones this summer. The Cheever Owens Fieldhouse remodel turned out very nice. We've had a lot of compliments and positive feedback on it so far. The project went really well and stayed under budget, so it's kind of a win-win so far. If you haven't had a chance to stop out and check it out, please do. Turned out very nice. A couple of other bigger things we had this summer. We completed a bigger roof section over at the Lincoln. Did some extensive tuck pointing at all the building exteriors throughout the district. We also started digging into our electrical panel upgrades and LED upgrades throughout all of our buildings. So those are just a couple of the bigger things we had going on that needed to get done prior to school, and here we are. So next up basically is, if you look at the map I have in front of you, this is something we've been working on now for probably the last 2 or 3 months, which is the Green Haven School remodel. We, like I said, we've been working on this since midsummer-ish, maybe late July. Along with Witseth and myself, we've had a group of 5 staff from the Green Haven that we've been working with that have been given their input, going back and kind of being the spokespeople for the Green Haven building itself. Like I said, we're just going back and forth with them for weekly, getting their opinions and finding out what they like, what they don't like. This map is just kind of a picture of what we have so far, and we're getting really close for it to go out to bid. So if you want to take a look at the front of it, that first picture on the left, that's basically just a typical classroom and hallway view. Underneath of it, it gives you 10 bullets. Those are basically what we're going to be doing in the classrooms. One of the bigger things that was kind of a hot topic item is demoing the coat closets and the block walls in there to free up a bunch of space in the classroom. So we're going to be removing those, demoing those, and then either demoing the old toilet rooms in there, which they're single stall toilets, which they don't use anymore, or turning those into storage closets. So depending on our budget and where we're at, we'll see what we do there. Otherwise, just kind of your typical classroom remodel. Start with the floors, redo the flooring, they all get new casework. new teacher built-in workstations. Our student cubbies will not be inside the classroom in this project. They'll be out in the hallway to save, again, more room for inside the classrooms itself. We are going to remove the showcase windows in each room and just infill those with tack boards on the inside, and then kind of build out the wall on the outside and make it look unique. Same thing inside, new window ledges, new sills. We're also going to add a whole bunch of outlets. That was another hot topic item that the teachers did not have enough of. So we're deferring some walls out, adding those as well. And then along with that, just paint and lighting in all of them. So if you look at the map to the right there, that's kind of your overview of the building itself. These are areas other than the classroom spaces that we'll be doing work in and won't be doing work in. The blue area, that's the gym space. We are going to do a new floor in there, new paint and lighting, and hopefully, again, if budget depending, put a new divider wall in to get rid of the original one in there. The green space there, that's the library. We are going to keep the casework in there. It's in really, really good shape. It's not that old. We are going to replace the countertops and flooring in there as well with new paint and lighting at the same time. The red area, that's the cafeteria. That is going to get pretty much the same thing. New flooring, new paint and lighting, but Widseth is trying to come up with something really unique for that space, just to kind of keep it away from your ordinary cafeteria space. So something on the walls, something in the ceiling, just to give the kids something else to really look at. Something that we don't have anywhere else in the district yet. And then also the teacher loan. Teacher loan, same thing. That's going to get new casework, new flooring, new paint and lighting, and a little bathroom remodel. Those are those spaces there. All the other little gray areas that we have, those are basically mechanical rooms, boiler rooms. One of them's the office space, which we just redid in 2018, so we won't be doing anything in there. Along with the public restrooms, those were done in 2016, so we really don't have to do much in those ones as well. If you want to flip to the second page, this just kind of gives you, this is not what the building is going to look like. It just more or less gives you kind of the colors and the of what it's going to look like on the walls and the floors, ceilings. This is the color patterns that the teachers chose, so we kind of let them run with that, whatever they thought their whole group thought would be unique. So that's what they picked.
Tyler, we're not getting arched doorways over
No, we're not getting arched
Okay,
doorways,
just
no.
checking.
This is one. We can have one.
No, that's okay.
If you flip to the next page, so now this is like an actual classroom, what the classroom itself will look like. The top picture on the left, that's your typical sidewall. That's from standing inside the classroom, looking at the door going out into the hallway. You can see the larger tackboard area on the right there. Those are the old cubby spaces. That's going to be learning space again. So by removing those block walls and that cubby space, we're saving like 100 square. We're having an additional 100 square feet in each classroom for students and staff for whatever they need. That was a really big hit there as well. Picture to the right, that's just kind of what the front of the room is going to look like. You have your smartboard in the middle, which all rooms in the district have now, and then a whiteboard on each side, along with your built-in teacher station there as well. And then the bottom, of course, that's just you standing in the back of the classroom looking towards the front of the room. Next page. This is pretty much the same thing. We have some rooms over there that are a little bit smaller than others, so we had to do just a couple different layouts, cabinetry-wise. Not a big deal. But the typical back wall elevation, that's the picture in the upper right-hand corner. That is what the back of the classrooms will look like throughout the building. Basically the new casework, new countertop and sink, and a storage area on the far right for their iPad cards. And then, of course, at the bottom, the same thing. That's basically what you're looking at when you're standing in the back of the room, looking towards the front. Next page. That is your hallway elevations, basically just what the views are going to look like from standing in a hallway or walking throughout the building. You can see hallway elevation A, that's the third grade wing. That's the one up the ramp. Those room exterior doors are going to have a little bit of a bump out just to kind of give it a little bit of a pop, I guess as Widseth calls it. And then you can see all the cubbies in there as well throughout the hallways. Same thing with hallway, the B elevation. That's just the second grade hallway. Same thing, different colored exteriors on the doors there, and then all the cubbies out in the hallway as well.
Tyler, could you just, originally we talked about the lockers, the cubbies in the hallway, that there wasn't enough room there. You just want to talk through that, how that worked?
Yeah, so we compared them to the Washington classrooms, and the Washington classrooms have like almost a 20-inch depth. So we were just looked at if we take the 20 inches on each side of the of the hallway out to put the cubbies in, which we need to do, we're losing, almost 4 feet of space in the hallways, which just wouldn't fly. So we were able to find, we're going to custom build our lockers, or our cubbies, excuse me, so that they're only like 13 to 15 inches deep. So we'll save a whole ton of room there. We won't be on any fire marshal code lists or anything like that. So that's why we're
fire marshal exit issues,
Yep,
correct?
yep.
Having space to exit.
So by shortening the width on those, we can get away from that. It doesn't become an issue anymore. So then if you flip that page, you go to the last 2 pages. This is basically just kind of like what you're going to see when you come into the building. We are going to do the dark navy paint. We're going to do a vinyl wall graphic, and it'll have the raised white letters for the Greenhaven Elementary School, home of the Junior Jackets. The back page kind of gives you a little bit better of a view, like you'll see when you're coming into the building. So that's now if you come through the front doors, stand at the corner there, you'll see up the ramp, of course, to your left, and then you take a right and go down to the library, the office, and the south second grade wing. Another thing we're kind of trying to look at there, just for the look-wise, is if you look at the blue background in the picture, we are going to put the Anchor logo in there, but then kind of faded in the background. This version doesn't really show it good. The digital version copy shows it really well, as we're thinking about putting like a mural of the front of the high school on the back side of it, just to kind of give it something unique. So, yeah, that's where we're at with that one. Our plan for this is we're moving forward. We'd like to have our bids or these drawings done by the end of November, beginning of December, which will give us plenty of time to get our bids back and have all the contractors' materials ordered and everything, so we can start right away come May. So that's where we're at with that. You guys have any questions?
What do you anticipate the total cost to be?
This is going to be, so we budgeted $2.5 million for this. And we're assuming that as of right now, it's going to be somewhere between 2 and 2.5.
I have a question, Tyler. It looks like this is the back entry of the school, probably right off the playground.
Which, where are you
So
looking?
I'm looking here.
Yep.
This is the back entry. They come in.
Nope. So the top one that you just pointed out right there, that's door 6. That's up on the north end of the building.
Okay,
That's
so
the third grade hall.
what door do they come in if they were out using the playground?
Down here.
So I think one of the things the board heard and committed to last year was hand sanitation when kids come
Sure.
in off the playground. Is there anything built in here so when they come into the cafeteria, if they're coming in off the playground?
Yeah, so like right now, I don't know if you're familiar with inside the Greenhaven cafeteria, we have, particularly in the cafeteria there, we have 2 hand washing, sanitation stations.
Yeah.
And I believe in this playground entrance down here, I'm almost positive there is one on a stand with the holder underneath it to sanitize your hands as well.
Okay, so accommodated.
Yep. Yeah, those have been around since COVID, basically. Those were very, very popular 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah. Any questions? Let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're not remodeling or doing any buildings like Tyler did, but, okay, so just a few short slides for the ELC. A current enrollment, we have 20, which is our max in each of our 4-year-old classes, so that's 80 total. There's about 10 in those 4 that are out of district. In our 3 school, we have an AM and PM class. We can have 16 in each, and currently we have 16 in the AM and 13 in the PM. For the 4-year-old class, we do have like 2 or 3 people on a wait list. So if for some reason someone drops out during the year, we will fulfill that spot. For the 3s class, we do not have anyone waiting to get in yet, but once screenings go on, there could be a 3-year-old that would be able to enroll in that anytime throughout the year. So pretty good for enrollment there. We do data just like the K-6, K-12 buildings, but we have TS Gold data, which is compared to their FastBridge data, and our data window will close right around the end of October, beginning of November, so that at conferences, the teachers can share that data with the teachers. It's more like cognitive, social emotional, there's physical, there's math, there's like 5 or 6 different domains that they test the kids in. So we do the same kind of things, but if they don't have FastBridge preschool, so we do TS Gold data. And that is shared with the parents, and we do that 3 times a year. And the teachers enter that for each of the students. And then we use that data also for like the reports that Carrie is working on. It's not called the World's Best Workforce Report anymore, but we use that data in that report since we don't have the FastBridge data. We're still implementing the classroom engagement model. Last year I did talk a little bit about it at one of the board meetings where the computer didn't work, so it was fun to get to listen to me the whole time. But it's just a framework used to continually engage the students throughout the day. The staff and the paras are all trained in it. We have 3 new staff members that are attending the trainings this year on 3 different days to get trained in that, in the different modules. However, throughout the year we do a refresher, like we had a CEM refresher at the beginning of the year, and then every other month or so we do a team meeting with the classroom teacher, their 2 paras, the SPED staff, and myself, and just go over any of different goals for the IEP kids, different interventions that we're doing with the kids, what's working, what's not working, who's taking the kids in the sensory breaks. So we're just continually always working as a team to make sure that the kids are being engaged and included as much as possible. One thing that I was telling Cassie before we came in, we have a sensory room that the past 2 years down at the ELC has been used as more of like a bring a kid that has strong emotions to a room. And so it was completely bare, empty the last 2 years. Well, this year we have it actually set up as our sensory room with all the different things that our nonverbal kids can use. So we have scheduled sensory breaks for these kids throughout the day where either a para or their classroom teacher or the SPED teacher brings them in for 10 or 15 minutes throughout the day, or if a kid is highly stimulated, then we can also bring them in there. So we're super excited that we get to actually use our sensory room as a sensory room. So the kids are really benefiting from that. We had the Fall Festival last week. So this year is our first year that the ELC is combining with the Washington for the PTO. So we're like a Washington ELC PTO. So our students at the ELC fundraise just like the Washington kids. So then everything that the Washington PTO puts on, the ELC kids are also included in. So they got to go to the Fall Festival last week, and it was almost perfect weather for it. So I just have some pictures here for that. So the kids had a really fun time there, and it's super fun that the Washington partnered with us, so we are included in that. So today was fundraiser pickup for all that. One event that the ELC community had was Mr. Ed's Farm a couple weeks ago. They had that, another gorgeous day. We went from hot cocoa to juice boxes because it was like 70 degrees Sunday. So that was a perfect night for that too. A couple fun things that went on at our school. And then some upcoming dates. We'll have our second screening on Friday. Fall conferences. Those are the wrong dates, but it's that weekend this November, the 12th and they're the wrong dates, but it's Monday and Wednesday the same week. Wrong dates. And then Santa at the ELC will come on September 19th, where we combined with Head Start and invite them to our program there too. So just a couple of fun things going on, and so far everything's going great at the ELC. Obviously we do have, it's not perfect by any means, but we are working through the small nicks, and we have a lot of kids on special transport this year, so that's probably one of our biggest challenges is getting the kids on and off the vans and making sure that they're not affecting the drop off or pick up at Washington. So we have vans coming and going all day. any questions for me about the Early Learning Center or?
Mandy, do you want, it's been what, about a week and a half, we met with Head Start, and Gabe
Oh.
Johnson. You want to just talk a little bit about that? We were talking about, potentially doing some partnering with
Oh.
them. Did you just, maybe just a
Yeah,
little
we just
overview?
thought that, we were talking possibly about doing some different things to try to prevent and help with the cost between the two districts. We already do a lot of collaborating, but we wanted to try to do more. One thing we have to work on is schedule of the day. Our start and end times are different, and busing, if we could maybe work with them on busing. However, they have federal guidelines and state guidelines for how their kids have to be bused, which would really benefit if our kids could get bused with them, because they have to be in seatbelts and aid on the bus with them. Where right now we send these 4-year-olds on the yellow school bus with K through 12 grade kids, and they get to their destination, but it's a lot more chaotic, right? So if we could share school buses with them, that'd be huge, a savings. We talked about if we had an Excel in the numbers in our programming, if we could maybe take over one of their rooms, and then go over there for one of their spaces, and they would combine their half-day program to a morning and afternoon class. We talked about maybe potentially including them in the after-school program, if depending how that goes, because we had talked with Kitty Carousel about taking over the Wrap Care program possibly, because Kitty Carousel is having difficulties staffing there after school when all of our 4-year-olds get to their building after school. So we're working with Kitty Carousel and Head Start and different people to try to collaborate and see what would be the easiest, most cost-effective way to collaborate. So, did I hit on everything?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I just think that the big point is that we're working with Head Start to try to streamline some of our processes and to try to save some money, both for Head Start and for us. And talked about potentially sharing some staff. It was a really good conversation, so.
And Gabe Johnson, old Skip of Head Start, he is very open to any kind of suggestions or anybody that they have any brainstorming ideas of how we could collaborate and cost save. So we're all working on that too. So any ideas or suggestions, just let us know. And yeah.
Well, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Good luck in Greenway.
Thanks.
With that, we'll move to item 7, administrative business. Sir Alex,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
you're welcome.
Item A is a motion to adopt the resolution supporting district application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for the High School Activity Department to use the Minnesota State High School League Form A grant funding to offset financial reductions that are provided for the free and reduced lunch students at Hibbing High School.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Director McLaughlin, supported by Director Polter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Item B is a motion to approve the assurance of compliance with state and federal law prohibiting discrimination and to direct the superintendent to submit the report as provided by Minnesota statutes and rules.
Move.
Support.
Moved by Director Polter, supported by Director Martin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. With that, we'll move to item 8, discussion items. Turn that over to Superintendent Rick.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
We had 2 items in discussion. One was a follow-up on our cell phone policy, and the other was the hiring procedures to bring some ideas for changes to the hiring procedure process. So I guess I'm just looking for some direction from the board, how you'd like to proceed, if you'd like to look at changing. I know Director Barty had shared some ideas. I think Director McLaughlin had some ideas too that were shared with some of the board members. So just curious how you'd like to proceed with our current procedures.
You know, I have to say, when I read that hiring policy, how many times confidentiality was mentioned and it wasn't followed in the one that brought all this up. And I think that really needs some reflection on a lot of people's part of what this hiring process is and what confidentiality means and what it means to be responsible for keeping your confidentiality.
The only thing I got is there were a lot of people on the committees for something like that. To me, it should reduce the amount, so. you
That's
get-
why I had suggested we put like a min or max, or just at least have a max in there.
Otherwise, you get
where-
1,000 different ways to go.
I thought we had discussed this in the past, we were
We
limited
did.
to 5 or 6 members
Yeah.
on their interview committee. I understand, being the athletic director, we had to have more people involved because of, he works with coaches, he works with, you know, basically everybody in the school administration, so for that incident, I can see why we had more people, but I know we went through this before in our hiring process, that we hire people, we respect their ability to give us an opinion based on the interview, who we should hire or not hire. And we're kind of, are we fighting that now, or are we saying they're not doing their job? I mean, I haven't had one problem with any hiree that we've had since I've been here, and the process that we used to do it, until the deal came up with the athletic group.
Although I might say that I think administration might be a different committee makeup than what some other staff members are. And I mean, we don't hire a new superintendent and have the teachers pick on. That's their boss. And that seems a little out of sync with what happened here as far as I'm concerned. That it needed to be a broader administrative deal rather than a coaching staff. That's my opinion.
Sure.
I had also suggested too, like within our hiring policy, that there be a separate admin policy in it for that very reason. And I know, I think there was a comment made about how, the MSBA does not, recommend to having, school board members on the committee. I don't think anybody on the board wants to be on the committee, but I do know that in our policy, it says school board members can be part of the committee. So if we don't want them, and if that's what the MSBA recommends, then we should just remove it from the policy.
Sure. Yeah, because it comes to the board anyhow. Kind of-
But I'm just saying, it's,
Yeah.
right now, it's there. If we don't want it, then it should be removed.
Again, if I'm a member of the board, after this next election, I don't expect to be asked to be on the hiring committee. I don't want to be on the hiring committee. As I stated, we hire professional people. Our teachers, our administration are all professional. We should give them the opportunity to do like we've done in the past. 5 to 6 members on the committee to interview individuals, figure out who is the best one, and then come to the board with their recommendation. I just think we're making more work for ourselves again, and there's no need to do it.
So simple.
And the one thing I would really like to come to an understanding is, as long as I've been on this board, the topic of can administrators be coaches? And we have several of them, and I don't have a hard feeling either way. I'm just saying either we need to adopt it or we need to abandon it. And maybe it's something different, maybe it's not just because you're an administrator that you can coach or you can't coach, but maybe there's certain things that are kind of incompatible just by the nature of what it is. And I don't even know what that might be. But I just feel like that's something we've been carrying along with us, and
Unfortunately, in this day and age, we try to find a coach. First of all, it's very hard to find a coach. And if you have somebody that's in the administrative role that could be a coach and has the time and the ability to do it, do we want to, and he's a good coach, or are you going to say, well, we don't want you because you're in administration? I mean, we're kind of,
That's what we said the last time, that this one person has too much on their plate to
Right.
do any good on this side, so. But that was only one instance we had that.
Look at like a situation like Mandy, I mean, she's going volleyball tonight, she's been coaching all year. It's had minimal effect on her role during the day. I mean, she may have had to leave a half hour early to get someplace, but it's very minimal. I think that situation, I mean, it's doable, it's workable. I think the golf situation with Mr. Gabarty, if you had your season and you got started on time and you had your meets when you were supposed to, that would be doable too. But when everything gets pushed into the month of May and he's gone for 4 days out of a week for 2 weeks at a time for golf, maybe that isn't the best situation. But
And I think different sports are different.
Yeah.
You know, like for instance, like for cross country, they don't have, most of their meets are away. They only have 1 or 2, possibly 2, but always 1 for sure at home where everything else is away. That does change. And if you look at some of the sports too, the length of time that the event takes plays a role. So then they would be leaving earlier than the day rather than, closer to the 3 o'clock mark or 2:30.
And like I said, I don't care either way. I don't have a strong feeling right now either way, but I just think it needs to be clarified.
well, that's what I was hoping is that, that we allowed James to finish out the season, Mr. Please to finish out the season, and then we could have a conversation with him as the athletic director. Is that even a doable situation? I mean, I think how it worked out here this year, I think it worked out pretty well. What that would have looked like if he had started on August 1st, and it probably would have looked a heck of a lot different. But these couple of weeks that he served as AD and head coach, this hasn't been a problem. But every sport's different, every situation is different. The head coach piece, I think, is a different conversation. Assistants as administrators, I think that's pretty doable depending on the sport. Head coach, I don't know. Unless you've got a really good coaching staff and assistant coaches that work with you that can pick up some of that slack and help you out. Pretty busy. It's a lot going on, especially in spring sports. Spring sports are, all the cancellations and all the changes. Just to keep up with that as an AD is tough in itself, let alone to be coaching on top of that. I think I told you, I coached in Chisholm many years, and I was a principal at the end. I wasn't doing justice to my principal role, and I wasn't doing justice to my coaching role. When I was coaching, I was thinking about issues that we had at the school during the day, and coaching was always coming into my job during the school day for whatever reason, whether it was parents or students. It just wasn't a good fit for me personally. But so that's what I was hoping, to have that conversation here in the next month or so, and get an opinion from James too. I mean, I trust him. I think he would be honest if it's. He's already said to me that he doesn't believe that track is even a possibility. He thinks cross country can still be doable, but we haven't really talked since he took the job. So. But I wanted to bring that back to you here probably after their season is done, after I've had a chance to talk with him. Maybe he could even come to the meeting and give his insight.
And I just never want it to be perceived that we're favoring one person or one sport or one whatever. That's why I just want to make sure that we're clear. So if somebody is an administrator and they want to apply, that they don't self-exclude because they think we have this thing, but we don't have this thing.
So the question you're asking, are we going to change it so anybody that's an administrator position in this school district cannot be the head coach? Any coach.
Well, currently
I know we have it now. I'm just saying,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
looking at what's going to happen in the
Okay.
future.
yeah.
And I'm not even suggesting that it has to be an all or nothing, but maybe with administration's review, kind of like when you look online and the legislature has incompatible appointments and elected roles that you cannot serve, maybe there's something that they define.
I understand, but when you look at what the state has, they're looking at what happens down in the cities in Minneapolis, where they've got abundance of people that can be coaches and superintendents, administrative, and whatever. Being up here, we're kind of limited to the quality of people that we can hire to come do a job here. And if we're gonna limit, and again, it comes down to talking to somebody, if they think they have the ability to do it, should we allow them to do it? If they don't, then we just have to make that decision. If you're gonna be administration, you can't be a head coach. Could you be an assistant coach? You know, I guess that's the question I'm asking.
But I think we have to be cautious too. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about, do they think they have the ability? And I'm just using they, I don't even know what they is, right? Generally. Because it might be something that is a passion of theirs. They might think they have the ability to do that, but I think we need to look to our administration too, because they may not have a problem if they're on a bus heading down to Forest Lake at noon, but maybe the people around them and the other staff that rely on them or the other administrators, maybe that's an inconvenience for conducting business that needs to be conducted. So it's not just what they think they can do.
But if you have a good support group, as I mentioned earlier, where you have good assistants, where you have good people in the office that you can count on to take care of anything that might come up while that coach is gone or the individual is gone, should we feel comfortable to allow them to do it? I guess it's kind of a catch-22 when you really look at it.
Yeah. And I don't have the answer. I'm not suggesting I have the answer, but I guess our administrative team, I think they could probably come up with a pretty good.
I just go back to the point that I made earlier, when I made this 5 years ago when we had this incident with Coach Anderson, that we have a procedure we follow, we go by their recommendation, and then from there, being that we rely on their professionalism as administrators or teachers or coaches, that we can make a decision based on that. Now, I understand that maybe there were too many people involved in the hiring of Mr. Police, but again, you have to look at the circumstances involved because of the number of different departments that he has to deal with. And when you get 19 people in a room, you know darn well that someone's going to leak something. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, the way it is in society today.
You were to say dang.
Dang, it's it. That
That's what I heard.
unfortunately, that's what you're going to have. People can tell you, I won't tell anybody, but when they walk out that door, it's a different story. So,
But I think that goes back to Director Martin's point, is there has to be some accountability and responsibility when you're signing that, and you're not just signing it to say, oh, doesn't matter, I can say what I want. There has to be accountability, and there has to be a consequence. I mean, you're not signing it just to sign it. And with that too, I think, I mentioned this to you too, that, as a board member, it would have been nice to know before the public knew, and that would be something I would also recommend.
Sure.
Changing our hiring policy, so we're aware first rather than others.
And that's the first time,
You
that
know, I don't-
surprised me too.
I see your point, but I don't actually think that all these hires have to come to the board before they come to the meeting. It should be recommended to the superintendent brings it to the board. And I don't see a problem with that. The real problem was the confidentiality.
and I feel that we have enough confidence in our superintendent that if he feels it's not a good choice, he'll let us know. Based on what he was told by. But again, if you've got somebody that signs a sheet of paper and says, well, I'm not going to say anything to anybody, and then they do it, what are you going to run another investigation and say who said it?
No, but we expect kids to be responsible. We better have some hiring committees that are too.
They're not really that professional if there's.
I was in charge of it, but I've not heard of any confidentiality leaks. This is brand new news to me.
I think what
So,
happened is there's lots of conversation about it. I mean, I don't know about
Because it all
what was
happened
leaked or
in
who
one,
leaked, but.
it all happened in one day. We had all the interviews. I talked to them, I addressed confidentiality, more than having them read the paper and sign it. We talked about it, we said there's no side conversations. If they leave for lunch, they cannot talk about any of the candidates when they leave for lunch. Whatever they have in their mind, we're going to talk about at the table in that room. Everything stays in that room. We talked about that more than than anything, because we want to make sure that there's integrity in that process. And then I told everyone at the end, if we had a candidate that accepted the position, I said, don't say anything until everyone else, until you get word from me that I've notified Mr. Aldrich, and then he notifies the board, and I have to notify all the other candidates so that they don't hear through the grapevine. They need that respect as well, to be told that we hired someone else. So I thought we went through that process, and I have not heard of any confidentiality breaches. But if you know of a person who did, or they contacted you during that day, then I would like to know, because that is not okay. And we talked about how that would not be acceptable.
So if I told you that I knew before the hire that he was hired, do you think I'm gonna tell you who told me?
Yeah, that's,
Or who was being interviewed?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of how all that started. I mean, even before, I mean, a number of our staff in the high school already said word for word exactly who was going to be hired and who was going to replace. And that's kind of where this all started for
But
me
nothing
anyway.
is, like, nothing is set in stone. There's, people all have their opinions on, oh, I wonder who the next,
But that's not what it
principal
came. It came from somebody who was on the hiring committee. Of who these
before
staff
we had
members heard.
interviews.
Yes.
Because nothing is decided before the interviews, nothing, they wouldn't, maybe
You're
they
right,
would.
which is why it's such a coincidence that it all panned out exactly how that person stated it was going to happen.
Because we had no preconceived, like, we're in this to view all the candidates and see how it goes. But I also had, there were 20 people on my hiring committee, and we had the same for Mr. Snyder. That there have been big committees so that every department is represented at our, and that's okay. We can bring it down to 5 or 6 people if the board wants to do that, but that wasn't new to this hire. That was the same thing when I was hired
And the other thing too, as soon as, when I was offered the position and Renee called me, I started calling my mom, and I called people right away, so people were gonna find out before school board members, because I figured if I'm offered a job, I have the right to tell. I mean, obviously nothing was set in stone until it was board approved, but I mean, then that language needs to be added too, like congratulations, we're offering you the position, but you can't tell anybody until the school board is notified. I mean, it was an exciting milestone in my life. As soon as I hung up the phone, they're like, and I don't, I'm from Michigan, so people in Michigan knew before the school board, but if it's somebody local, I can see how it could get out quickly with everybody being related to it.
And that's the other thing too, we seem to always be approving somebody's hire after they've already started, not after. We're not approving and then they're starting and we're approving a week or 2 weeks after. I don't understand that part.
Well, I think a lot of it is just the posting process and filling a need, right? Especially at the start of the school year. We do have that. I mean, there's the one-offs throughout the year, there's not many that you're approving after the fact. But yes, we are approving some just based on when our school board meeting is and to get them into training for in-services. That happens usually every fall, but the other thing I think about is, if the board wants to be informed on hires, then I think we have to determine which hires, because we're hiring people every day, right? I mean, we're hiring PSAs, 14-hour aides, and custodians, and so we have to determine if the board wants all that information, or do they want administrative hires, just how you want to handle that.
I think that all of this has come up in the spotlight, and why not keep your eyes on it for a while and see how things go in 6 months, let's take another look at it or something. And with recommendations from administration, people that are doing the hiring.
And I'm not saying the process that was used to interview our athletic director was wrong. If you want to have 15 or 20 people, if you feel that's what you need because you want a representative from each division of the school. But I can tell you, Mrs. Sikoris, go back there.
Oh, yeah, yes.
I can tell you before I came to this room, I knew who our AD was. and I knew who the 5 people were that were interviewed for the final job. I'm not gonna tell you who I heard it from, but that, you know, I have a little bit of confidentiality there, but I knew before I came to this board who our AD was. So,
I do too.
And I think we knew by the time we walked out of the room.
Well, and the part that was most
Just after.
bothersome to me was a couple things, but knowing who the candidates were that were being interviewed and that was circulating on the street, and I'm not even talking about this, but you think about your own professional lives, right? There might have been some of those candidates that didn't want their names out there publicly. That's, I mean, like, that's what I care about, is also the respect that we have for the process and the people.
especially if you're at another school and you're interviewing for a position.
Yes.
So the people that were on the interview team didn't get the names of who we were interviewing, the final list, until they came to that meeting that day. I didn't send it out to them. It was that day where they got the agenda and who was interviewing that day.
Well-
So I can see, like, when I got an interview, I told all my family and friends, hey, I got an interview in Hibbing, you know, so if people tell that they have an interview, you know, I was at one of the volleyball games and someone came up to me and said, oh, I know that they have an interview because they told me they had an interview. So then they were talking about how that person might be, or, you know, so I think if you have an interview, you can tell people, but I didn't let anyone know ahead of time who the top people were until we interviewed them.
Except I mean, I knew because we were tallying up the votes for all the candidates, but I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Well,
Did you get that on the TV when they're talking back there? Okay.
one good thing might be too, just to cause a little bit of a pause, is maybe the reference checks should be done for an administrative position. I'm not talking for all positions, but maybe just to make sure we're asking questions uniformly, whatever. Red flags, whatever it might be, maybe they should be, maybe Trina should be the one doing the reference checks. And then that gives you an opportunity to say, yep, I see no red flags, because really, you're making the recommendation
Yes.
to the board. Because in this case, if it was out in the community, and what if there would have been a red flag? You know, what would have happened? Or for any, I'm talking any administrator, I just making sure that you have the right opportunity to do your due diligence and feeling comfortable who's being recommended.
So you want a recommendation from one of the board members?
I don't think we should be making a recommendation. I mean, I'd like to turn it back, Rick, to you, to administration, to say, does this make sense? You know, I mean, one of the things in here, the job posting for new positions has to get your approval. Well, you know, it's a new position. I'd like to make sure that there's money in the budget. You know, so maybe just review it and come back to us.
Certainly.
I think if you break it down into a process, I think we should have a process. If we're gonna hire an administrative position or a head coaching position, we have a certain process we have to follow for that. As far as a teaching position or assistant coach or something along that line, I think that can be handled directly through the superintendent. That way we would, you know, the board would be informed, and then at the end, you know, when we come to a board meeting, when we hire a teacher, we know that went through you, had your approval, so we have to trust your ability to get us, you know, the information we need, and we go from there. But I just think that we could sit here for an hour and spin our wheels talking about what process and how we should do it. I just think if we're gonna hire an administrative position or a head coach position, that person should go through a board that's gonna, you know, check their background, check everything that has to be checked.
And use his judgment as, it should go to the board, so.
But I like the idea of having 5 people from,
Yeah,
you know,
good
the staff
representation.
interviewing that individual to get their opinion on what they think is going to do the job.
When we started this whole argument, what did you say, 5 years ago, we started discussing training process. One of the topics that came up, because of the size of our district, the sheer volume of staff that we're hiring every week, it seems like, maybe it's time we should look at the HR director and oversee this, because you've got so many administrators involved in so many aspects of the hiring. It's a complicated process. And we talked at length about the HR director 5 years ago, and maybe I think we need to revisit that.
You know, I think by and large, the hiring process has worked well. We got one here that doesn't feel quite right.
I look at it this way, 5 years ago when Coach Anderson applied for the job, he didn't get the job and I was blamed for it because I asked us to go through the procedure that we agreed to. And he did not go through that procedure. And it came to a vote. Now, we're very lucky that Mr. Henderson decided to come back and give it another shot. But again, that was something that happened 5, 6 years ago where this process of interviewing by his peers, in my mind, wasn't done. I was never given anything, which we were supposed to. That was our hiring process. So,
Well, that was right before it came, and that's, I believe, when this document was created, correct? Was out of that.
right, that's that point I'm trying to
There was a
make.
little bit of a mix-up at that time for the
Correct.
board, so yeah, it wasn't really the policy, it was kind of the board's, kind of a comedy of errors, if you will. Should never have happened.
What's written in this document seems really complicated to me. I feel like it could be streamlined a little bit. And again, maybe it's different for an administrative position versus any other position, but the other thing is, I was surprised to learn, and maybe it's the environment I work in, but I wish we had the opportunity to do internal postings. And I don't know if we have to would have to work with our unions to do that, but there may be positions and circumstances just like this one, right? Like if we have an internal candidate we feel is or internal candidates, because of the timing and the time of year we're posting and it's critical to get somebody in there, maybe like internal to the employees of ISD 701. I didn't realize it was internal just to that bargaining unit. You know, we've got good people here, so maybe we give them an opportunity. Is there any way we can do that? Post it internal.
I was under the assumption it was
Yeah.
posted internally
Yeah, it's
first,
first.
and then it goes out to the public.
But it was internal to the bargaining unit, to 4 or 5 people, right?
Like, for instance, if we had an opening for a custodian, if somebody retired and we're going to fill that position, we have to, by contract, offer that internally to the other AFSCME members first.
Yeah.
Nobody comes forward, then we go external after that. And all of our contracts are like that. Some are tied to licensure, some are tied to skills, some are tied to... I can't see the bargaining group saying, yes, we wouldn't allow for internal openings, we would just post everything externally, I think is what you're saying, right? So that's the other thing that's confusing is even staff members here, I work here, I'm internal, yes, but you're not internal to that group.
Right.
And that was this situation.
Right, right. But even in this situation, and maybe it's different, again, when you're hiring an administrator, where it could be internal, where we don't need to go outside, and maybe in Q, we have some qualified candidates, or in AFSCME, we have qualified candidates. It's just, they're not internal to the unaligned unit.
Right.
So then we're going out there to the world when it's not really practical with what we have going on.
But are we worried about, not nepotism, but it's, if you're just gonna do it internally, you might miss somebody that's out there that is better for the job.
Yeah, if they're not, if they can get this, you're right.
But, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but once it goes external, like an AFSCME position, custodial position, if nobody internal says that I have an interest in it and it goes external, a HUE member could apply, or a non-aligned person could apply.
Well,
I don't know if that's what you're saying.
Well, and I think really when it comes right down to it, where the wheels fell off is when everybody all over town knew who the 5 candidates were that were being interviewed. I think that's really where the wheels kind of fell off.
Sure.
Because if nobody would have known, and both for the successful candidates, for they deserved it, as well as for the people that were interviewing that may not have wanted their current employer to know that they're interviewing. And then people then challenging and critiquing credentials, right, like against each other. That was,
I would ask if we take a look at our existing policy and our superintendent get with Sikora and the administrative staff and see if there's a better plan, a better way to do it. If not, then we keep what we have and let's go with it.
I agree.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Give me a time frame. When do you want it done? In the next month?
Whatever's
5:30?
reasonable.
5:30, okay.
Daylight savings is gonna take that.
I don't think I'd have it together for the next meeting.
I'd
but
like
if
to
you
see
give me-
something before the first of the year so that we could
That's
do it by the
doable.
first.
Yeah, very
So
doable.
if we change it, or critique it a little bit, we have it by the first of the year.
I'll get my group together and come back with some recommendations and using your recommendations.
And that
also.
way, I'm sorry, that way, if we do have new members on the board, they can take a look at it.
Yeah,
And
good
then
point.
they can make their own judgment.
And you've heard what we want, our comments on there, so.
Yes, yep, yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else? Thank you. With that, we'll, item B, cell phone policy. Turn that over to the superintendent already.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I don't know a direction to take. I mean, we talked at the last meeting, we had some public comment. You know, I look at how we arrived here, and other districts in our region took this on over the summer and just basically made the change prior to school starting, which in hindsight probably was a good idea. At the time, when we looked at it, our administrators had met with their staff, and the consensus was to move forward with what we currently have. So that's what we put in our handbooks, and that's what we recommended to you to approve. I completely understand all of the arguments on cell phones, and I agree with all the arguments on cell phones. I just think that we shouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction to it. We should have more of a process of discussing it and planning it and setting a deadline, and maybe we look again, like I suggested, at second semester for a change. I think if it was just to hit the public tomorrow, cell phones are taken away, we'd have a huge backlash just because of the timing of it. Maybe we don't care about the backlash, but that's a reality that the people that work here every day will have to deal with, right?
I agree, we should try to hold out as long as we can. I'm looking again at the first of the year. Next year, the students that are coming from the Lincoln already have that policy in place down there, so they're not gonna be walking into it. So I think this is something that we should look at, we're gonna do the first of next year, the next year's class, so when it starts. So we get through this year.
And I don't want to interrupt you, but we have to have something in place by March 13th. But
Okay,
it can be,
March 12th.
it can be our existing. It can be
Yeah, we're
the
okay with
existing.
that.
We just
Yeah.
have to have something in place.
Well, I think, again, I'm looking at, we have an election coming up, and that, some of us are gonna be here, some of us aren't.
Yep.
So I think if we could look at this, everybody get their opinion together, and by the first of the year, that'll give us January, February, March, come up with a plan and how and what we're gonna do, or who and what we're gonna do that we're here, and then implement that for March, and then that way the class, starting next year, everybody knows. They got the whole summer to, figure out what they're gonna do and complain about it, and then come at the first of the year, or first of the school year next year, the policy will be in place.
Quite honestly, Chair, I think our role as board member is to set parameters and expectations. And I know mine is that we have a policy in place by March 15th. But I believe our leadership team, when you look at the survey that was done in our school district, when we talk to the people in our school district, the volumes of emails and contacts that I've received, I don't think it's an easy thing. And I would say, I think we need to send that back to a subcommittee of some sort, whether it's administration board members, administration board community, and come back to us with a couple of draft policies. That's what I would like to see. And build it from the foundation up, not top down.
Yeah, can I say something? With everything, we have teachers who've been talking about it in the high school already saying, oh yeah, they're gonna take phones away already. And it's just like causing a lot more chaos into the classrooms because I hear students talking about it constantly saying they're gonna protest, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, if we do this right now in the middle of the school year, it's just gonna cause too much chaos and to the point where it's just gonna wreck the entire school. If we do it next year, like you said, I think they would have the entire summer to cry about it basically. And then even including the 7th graders that are gonna be coming up, they already have that opportunity. It's just gonna, if we do it right in the middle of the school year, it's just gonna be sheer chaos. That's what I gotta say.
I think we should look at, I agree with you, thank you.
I agree.
I think we agree we should go ahead and figure out what we want to do for a policy. Maybe at our February meeting, have that policy. And then by March, we can implement that policy so that everybody knows from March 15th on, the next year's school year is going to be, or what it is.
What is the next semester start?
It's usually like end of January, mid-January.
I agree, I think we should be.
I honestly think we getting a policy in place, even if there may be one member is implementing by next semester, is doable. I don't see the benefit of putting it off until next year, next school year. And teachers have spoken real clearly with their recommendations that the level of disruption and problems in schools is a lot. I listen to teachers, I listen to parents, I listen to students about this. They agree that the bullying and stuff that happens because of social media is destroying kids. I mean, people is full of it. Every day of some kid suicidal, chemical use, problems in school, behaviors in school. 90% of it be traced back to cell phones and social media. And as board members, we have a responsibility to protect our kids. If they want to get bad, they can get bad. We're all parents. Most of us are parents. We raise kids and we put down rules. Kids don't like it, but as a parent, and in a sense, we are the parents of this business. We make some decisions sometimes, and sometimes it makes people mad. In this case, it probably makes students mad. But at the end of the day, it's for the benefit of the students. And that's the one thing I learned over the years. It's the best interest of the students, it's the right decision. You don't have to like it. You don't have to be comfortable with it. But the reality is we're here to protect our kids. That's my feelings on it.
And ultimately, I agree with you, but I think it's the implementation that makes all the difference. That how you talk about it to kids in the schoolrooms, you know, we've got social, emotional, let's start talking about what the damages are, rather than just going with the fear and chaos thing. Let's try to work to the positive, that it's implemented for all the right reasons. But that process makes or breaks the whole thing. If you just put it in, then we're just trading one problem for another problem.
Honestly, I don't see it that way.
Well, then I think
Right now,
I think we're putting the problem that the teachers are gonna have to deal with all these kids that are all upset about this, and they're not concentrating on learning either.
We have October, November, or not, November, December, significant part of January to implement something, to have it understood. Should there be support for the kids that are having issues? Absolutely. But I think the writing is clear, the research is clear. Phones are not healthy for our children.
Superintendent Rick, can you do the same thing like we did for the other policy, get together with a group and come up with
Yes,
two
absolutely.
different ideas again? You heard nothing else, so then we'll approach it again.
I gotta look at it, to me, the phones are an addiction. I really feel it. And as hard as it is to go cold turkey on addiction, I think if we implement something, we give the students the chance to proper word, wean off the thought that they can't have their phone with them all the time. And I agree too that, yes, time is of essence, but if you try to ram something down somebody, there's gonna be, I think, more problems for us to deal with. If we could basically let them know this is what's gonna happen, here's a timeline.
Gradually.
And they gradually work in.
And even so, if we decide to, go with the no cell phone policy, whenever that may be, I mean, we also have to realize that we're not gonna solve all those problems just by doing that here. I mean, there's still gonna be the bullying, there's still gonna be anxiety, there's still gonna be no sleep. I mean, there's still gonna be a little addictions with it, and, we have to do our part, absolutely, I'm not saying that, but as long as we're going in this knowing that, okay, if we take this away, it's not gonna solve all those problems that were on that slideshow that we had. I mean, I wish it would, but it's not that easy, because as soon as school is out, as soon as they're on lunch, they're gonna be on those phones, at home, at night, in the summer. I mean, and, you could try to flip it too, just to play devil's advocate, even though I know I have 3 teenagers. I've never once said, oh, I hope you spend more time on your phone. Nobody says that. It's always spend less time on your phone. You don't need that screen time, but, in the outside world, in my industry anyway, that is 95% of how we do our job is from our phone. If you try to implement how to use it in your classroom or make it a norm, which again, I know sounds crazy, then maybe they wouldn't be on it as much. It's almost like they push the limit because they're not supposed to. But if it's out there and you're going to use this to use it as your calculator or use it for whatever reason, maybe it won't be that they're constantly on it. And I feel like it's not the phone itself, it's the social media that's the problem. Not that they have the phone to make a call or connect with a family member or get a pop up for a calendar as a reminder for something. It is that social media, and I don't know the answer with that social media. I think it's certainly a problem, but
And just as you say, you use the cell phone 95% of the time. There are many jobs that don't use the cell phone, and the use of that cell phone is a workplace problem in that situation as well.
But the other thing is, we haven't really set a policy. Basically, we have a policy, but we're looking to change it. But have we looked at, if we do change it, what are the circumstances if somebody has a phone? What are the consequences? What if it's a medical reason to have a phone? Are we going to allow that? Those are the things that have to be addressed.
Right. And I'd be interested in, I don't know if we have any way of knowing this. Can Joel capture the amount of time that people are hooking up to our Wi-Fi or whatever, and that they're on their external devices? I mean,
Probably not, because that's privacy.
The way it's been explained to me is there's slots in our Wi-Fi.
okay.
And when at 8 in the morning, when all the kids walk in the building, those slots get filled up. And it's not, you don't know who's, that you walk in, it's your phone, but there's just a slot that's been taken, so that's what bogs down our system, slows things. So I don't know if that's answers it.
Well, kind of, like, can you tell, are there periods of time that, like, everybody's on their phones? But again, it could be faculty, it could be staff, it could be
And they don't have to use
slots.
they don't have to use Wi-Fi.
Right,
They
right.
can just use their cell
Their
data,
data, right.
which is what most of the kids are doing.
Well,
Can't they use the iPad for the same thing?
No.
Boy, they get messages on the iPad.
It's school messages, but they don't get social media, that's blocked.
Can I chime in? Joel won't even allow me Wi-Fi on the phone that the district pays for. So the kids aren't on our Wi-Fi, they're using their data, or they use, the ones who have unlimited hotspots, let their friends use their hotspot. So it's not us, we can't track that data.
Thank you. Well, we'll see what he comes back with.
Well, yeah, and I'll work fast on both of these. I mean, it's basically be the same group, so we'll get together and we'll talk and we'll bring back a recommendation for you.
and do we think, so in the legislative briefing, there was talk that the legislature might provide some guidance. There's, in the MSBA, they provided some initial red line or blue line or whatever they call it. But are they continuing to come up with a model policy?
No,
They're done.
so what I had shared with you, that group effort between, who was it? Principals Association, I think it was the Elementary and Secondary Principals Association, that what I sent to you. And it does address the medical exemptions, and it was a really well thought out policy. And the Grand Rapids, did I share the Grand Rapids policy with you also?
Yes.
I thought I did. Okay, that I thought also was, really well planned out. So all those questions that you were asking, there is a plan for that.
When you do this, did you give us what Grand Rapids has as a policy?
Yep. I believe I sent it to you, but I can send it again.
I didn't get it, I didn't get the notice about the 3 o'clock meeting either.
I have to say, I think that Grand Rapids policy is well thought out and well written. It's worth reading.
Take a look at it.
It's your emails, I gotta get your emails for you.
Okay, I have one last thing. Can we make 2 o'clock next meeting instead of 3:30? Or will I?
For this next meeting.
November 6th. Would that work?
I'm happy to be here, I'll just let you know.
So that
I'll
doesn't
be out of
matter.
town, doesn't bother me.
It's a day after the election.
Yeah.
We put it up the next day.
Are you still gonna be partying?
Well, it's gonna be a long day for a lot of people that day. And we've got school board elections that night. That's on Tuesday as well, so whether or not we have the results back by 2 o'clock.
We do it the following week?
How about the Tuesday before? Wait, come on, the wrong one. Tuesday after, well, that's election day.
Do it like on the
I
12th?
don't see a difference between 2 and 3 o'clock.
I don't, 2 or
3:30.
The board will have to canvass the votes within 10 days of the election, so if you want to do it after, we can do it all at once, or otherwise we'll have to have a special election.
Special meeting.
Sorry, special meeting.
Yes, we could have it on the 13th.
Well, 2 o'clock,
Yeah, we
work
do
on
it.
that,
2 o'clock on the 13th, or 3 o'clock?
on
On the 6th?
the 5th,
On the
or
6th.
6th.
Oh, we're
then.
looking, well, I thought we were looking at
I'm
weeks,
saying that we have to canvass the votes.
because you could do the canvas of votes the following week. You could do it all at one meeting.
Yeah, we could do it on the 13th, we could canvass votes and have the meeting.
Oh, cancel that meeting on the 5th, go on the 13th.
Cancel the meeting on the 6th, have it on the 13th. You're on November?
Yeah, I'm on November 9th.
Alex, did you say the board must canvass the votes within 10 days? Is that what you said? Okay.
So what's happened in the past is we have that first board meeting, and then we end up calling a special meeting that next week.
Correct.
Well, would an earlier date in the week work?
I think it's 10 or 14.
It's 10 days.
Okay. But the 13th would,
Would follow.
we'd be okay?
Yeah.
We'd have time to, okay.
13th is 3:30.
Do you need a motion to do it?
Yeah, I suppose we should have on the record.
So make a motion that we move the November 5th, 6th meeting to the 13th at 3:30.
3:30.
I'll support.
Pardon?
I'll support.
Motion's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Director Polter,
Motion adjourned.
without objection, meeting's adjourned. It's 4:45, and I thank everybody for listening.
Hibbing Public Access Television would like to thank MediaCom for all the years they have supported our organization. Visit their office at 3105 East Beltline, Suite Number 2 here in Hibbing, and give them a call at 855-633-4226. For over 25 years, U.S. Bank, located at 211 East Howard Street in Hibbing, Minnesota, has provided office and studio space for Hibbing Public Access Television. We are thankful for their ongoing support. Hibbing Public Access TV may be viewed on these platforms: hpat.org with video on demand, Mediacom Hibbing 802, 805, and 807. On Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Download the Hibbing Public Access TV app for your iPhone and Android devices. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo. For more information, scan the QR code and go to hpat.org.